everyone is doing well today, and I pray for everyone that is having a hard time today too. And I pray for all of you. And I got this brainstorm idea where I decided to start at the very beginning of my life, where I grew up, and so on, because the reason why is because I want to know where different people grew up and different places, because they say MS, you hear it a lot. I talked about it being geographical versus genetic. I think it's kind of both. I don't know. But to see if there's anything sticks out of in my life or whatever, that you lived in the same place or you had stresses like I did, or just anything in common. So in the beginning of this, it's going to sound non-relevant to the MS and the Parkinson's, but I think when I finish it, that you will see how all of this is relevant, even though it's not going to seem that way at all for a couple weeks maybe for you. I don't know. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and start. So I was born to my mom and dad, and I had a brother that was a year older than me and a brother that was a year younger than me, and we basically lived on some property. There were some orange groves around us. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 sides of us, and they did spray some pesticides. I think we moved on that property in Porterville, California. I've always lived in California, and we know they were mixing certain kinds of pesticides, and my mom did say that one time we kind of got blasted with it, and she did take me into the shower. I have no memory of that. I don't know how old I was, and I don't know if it has anything to do with anything. I'm just saying that's how that happened in my childhood. And so basically we had a farm. We had cows, we had chickens, we had pigs, we had some dogs. My dad got a couple guard dogs that were kind of mean, and we had a lot of fun. We had kids over. We rode motorcycles, and also during that time, I think around like 5th grade or 6th grade, my dad started racing. It was super fun. We all had a blast. The family would come out. I also had a lot of uncles and aunts, and a lot of cousins that we played with. We were around. And also I had both sets of my grandparents on both sides, and it's a crack up because on one side of the family, my grandma and grandpa were so, I can't think of the right word, but they just loved us so much, and they had 12 kids. That's how come I was around so many cousins and aunts and uncles, and it was just a fun, great time. And I did pretty well in school. I always did pretty well in school. I could always have done better, but I like being a social butterfly and talking to everybody. But I did good. So we lived out there. We call it by the lake, out in the country there. Um, I would say from when I was about 5 years old until I was 12 or 13. So anyway, I don't remember ever being like really sick or anything like that. And you know, I got burned real bad on my leg by this, I call, well, this dumb guy. he we fell over and the motorcycle pipe fell on my leg and burned it really bad, and so my parents had to get that treated. And so pretty, you know, nothing really standing out there too much. But so moving on, I can't remember if it was my 7th or my 8th grade year, we moved, I guess moved kind of, to Costa Rica, and we were there for a while. The weather was good, the ocean was good, we spent a lot of time in the ocean, and I did get, I think, dysentery over there. I don't know what it was from or anything. I know my parents took me to a hospital there somewhere, and they gave me some medicine, and I was fine. And I do think one of my dad's friends also got sick. So I'm not sure where we got it, because we also were in Mexico City. So anyway, loved Costa Rica. It was so much fun, and we had a blast. And we went from there to, we flew to Guatemala. Guatemala during that time was after a big earthquake. I don't know how many years the earthquake happened before we got there, but it was pretty much a mess. And we didn't stay there very long. I think a few days. I'm not sure how long we stayed there. It was very beautiful. The mountains and stuff. I think we went out in the non-populated areas where you see all the beautiful mountains and stuff. But in town, there was people starving to death and homeless from the earthquakes, and we really couldn't wait to get out of there. At least I couldn't wait to get out of there. I didn't like it there at all. So then we moved to Terabella for a short time, and I got burnt. I'm always getting something somewhere, right? So I get burned, 2nd-degree burns on my face, and that was 8th grade. I don't know what part of 8th grade I started there, but I could go to 8th grade graduation because my face was still healing from being burnt. So, and I also was hanging out with my best friend, one of my best friends, Kathy. She had just had a kidney transplant, and so I actually have pictures of her and I during that time, which was so awesome. And I got to go with her, and when she had her dialysis and stuff like that. And anyway, so I don't know, we couldn't have lived there that long, because we moved from there to Lake Isabella, which is above Bakersfield, about an hour and 20 minutes. And we absolutely loved it out there. We swam, we fished. I loved Kern Valley High School. I had so much fun there. And I played volleyball. And my friend Sandy, her and Cecilia were super good at volleyball. They were like fantastic. I didn't even know what I was doing, but it was such a good time. And my experience at Kern Valley High School was so awesome. So then we moved from there, and I think it was my senior year, up further in the mountains to a place called Jack Ranch above Glenville. My dad had built us a cabin above my granny's cabin, which we had always gone up there a lot on the weekends, up to my granny's cabin. And I absolutely loved it there. And so I think it was about 4,000 elevation, so it gets snow and cold. And it was by a creek, and there was a small waterfall there that we used to swim, jump, play in. Our cousins would come up and we'd go swim, and it was super fun. And so we had to ride the bus like an hour and 15 minutes down to Bakersfield to go to school. I think it was more towards the end of my senior year. So I didn't do that well there. I didn't like that high school, but I'm talking about geography more than anything. But so I did go to school to Bakersfield. I never lived in Bakersfield. That was just a short time that I went to school there. So anyway, I think I can't remember how long we lived at Jack Ranch, but we moved back to Porterville, and no, actually we did not. We moved to Woody, and so me being young, and Woody was kind of like the foothills down from Jack Ranch. It was kind of hot there. There were some wolves there. I remember that. There was a swimming pool there, and we stayed on a ranch there. It was pretty dusty, because I wonder sometimes, where did I really get valley fever, because it took them so long to diagnose me with that. But anyway, so I was kind of bored there a little bit, and so, and to be honest, to get out of the house, I got married, and I moved back to Porterville, and I had my son. But anyway, during all this time, I would say when I was 18, I started experiencing like weird things, like my vision. I would see flashy lights. I wasn't sure, so I ended up going to an ophthalmologist, and he said, you have multiple sclerosis. I wasn't having like major symptoms then, but anyway, I pretty much ignored him. And so so we were living in Porterville. I was working. It was very hot. It's very hot there. And I think that day I had this huge exacerbation. This was after, I think when I was like 19, is when I started noticing I was having a little bit of balance issues, but they weren't like severe. Like, I would say, oh, I'm stressed out, or it's so hot. I would make excuses up. I'm tired. I think I had 2 kids by then, and so I just talked it up as being tired, not eating right, those kinds of things. And so what ended up happening from working all day, being hot, on my way home, I felt like I couldn't. I tried to put some lipstick on, and my lips wouldn't go together right, and I felt super odd and just weird. But I couldn't see myself in a mirror or anything, and my arm felt numb and really weird. And so, anyway, I pulled up to my mom and dad, and they took one look at me, and I didn't realize, like, this eyelid wouldn't go up. This eyelid kept blinking, and we went to the doctor or hospital, I can't remember, but they said I had, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of it. I think it was called Bell's palsy. But from what I know about Bell's palsy, it's like a virus. It lasts a short time, and it goes away, and it only affects like your face mostly, like facial drooping, which I had that really bad. I had facial droop. I looked like I had a stroke. And so a neurologist came in, and he said immediately that I didn't have a stroke. And so I did an MRI, and back then also a spinal tap, and it only took a few days, and he came and said I had multiple sclerosis. Well, I had no idea what that was. He didn't really explain it, but I think a month after getting diagnosed, it was a very hot day again, and I went to go visit my mom and dad, and I felt really weird, just like weird, strange. I don't know how to describe it. At that time, there was no MS medicines out, so I was on prednisone. They put me on prednisone. So I was on, I think, a pretty high dose of prednisone. And anyway, I just felt something wasn't right. And thank God, my mom was outside planting some flowers or something. So I stepped out of my car. That's the last memory I had. And I had a grand mal seizure, like a full-on grand mal seizure. And I didn't remember any of it until I woke up at the hospital. And my mom and dad were trying to explain to me what happened. And I absolutely had no memory at all of that. And we know now, if you get over hot with MS, you can have seizures, and also it can bring on a really severe exacerbation. Like, he is not your friend. It's much better to be in a cool place than a hot place. So anyway, I had, no, I actually forgot about this part. Sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit. But when I had my son, that's when things really went bad for me. As soon as I had him and I went home, I was literally falling down. I was having all kinds of visual problems. And I literally thought I was losing my mind. I really did. And that's when I did tell everyone before, when I called my mom and dad to come and get my son, because I was afraid I was going to fall and hurt him. And in the shower, I fell down a few times, and I just had no balance. It was like I had two left feet. So anyway, that was before the diagnosis, and I'm sorry I kind of had to go back a little bit to explain, because I want everyone to understand the beginning of my symptoms. So I was having eye problems, I was having numbness, and I even started having panic attacks. I think I had two like major panic attacks, and I kind of thought I was going crazy, to be honest. And my wonderful grandmother, she sat outside with me, and I was just crying because I felt so weird. And my grandma kept asking me what was wrong, and I kept telling her, I don't know. I couldn't give her an answer. And my grandma kept saying, what can I do to help you? And she was just comforting me. But I had no idea how to tell her at that time the symptoms I was having. You know, I was like afraid to tell her, like she'd think I'm crazy, like I can't see, and then my vision will come back, and I'm numb, and I have no balance, you know, like maybe she'd think I was drinking, which of course my grandma probably would not have thought that, because she was such a wonderful person, not so close to her. But anyway, we'll go back forward. And so I got diagnosed. I had the grandma seizure, and we figured out pretty much it was a heat. It was MS and heat, because most of the exacerbations I had was during the summertime, and it was being hot and exhausted. And I was put in the hospital a few times, and they give you just loads of prednisone. And so then I seemed like I kind of like plateaued out for a little while. Like I was doing okay. And then they tried to put me on seizure medicines, and I think between the MS and the seizure medicines, like I felt like I couldn't even get up. Like I had people taking care of me and the kids and everything, and I had lots of help, thank God, because I couldn't even get off the couch. So finally, they took me off the seizure medications, the normal ones, you know, like Topamax, Depakote, that's an old one, and they put me on Ativan, which that helps get you out of a seizure, but it's also for anxiety, other things. So they put me on that, and I seemed to do very well. I might have had a seizure like once every 2 years if I got real hot, but now I haven't in years, because I know don't get hot. And then during all this time, I became severely anorexic and bulimic, both. I did. And you know, my parents were very angry at me. They couldn't understand, you know, I'm sick, I have my kids. Why would I be starving myself to death? But I was. And I'd cover it up in any way I could. I didn't understand it really either. Except I could say during that time, like Kate Moss was a supermodel. She was super thin. So that's kind of what you wanted to look like. I didn't understand until much later. I think it was like 14 years ago now, when the first doctor in all those years, I was severely anorexic for at least, I'd say, like 14 years, 15 years, something like that. And my lowest weight was 87, and nobody asked me, not my neurologist, because I was having trouble swallowing, so they thought it was that. They never asked me until, I'd say it's been 14 years now, I think, and a doctor asked me, and I said yes. Well, it wasn't until, I'd say, about that it was really explained to me by a neurologist that when we get these lesions on our brain, they do certain things to our thinking, and some people call it MS fog brain, MS I forgot brain, all those kinds of things, and now they are studying a correlation, because there is a difference from anorexia nervosus and anorexia caused from some kind of brain disorder or something. For me, I do believe it was a brain not working right, a MS issue, because the minute they put me on a medication to kind of balance my brain out, literally I went from 87 pounds in a year to about 120. And it wasn't an antidepressant. I can't remember what that medication was. Anyway, I'll go into it more next week, but I just want to know if anyone experienced anything like that, and men experience that too. And I've heard a lot more about men with MS and them being anorexic or bulimic or both too. Anyway, I wanted to know if anyone's experienced that. Also, I just wanted to add this. I did find out also what can happen is overeating, which they're both eating disorders. They're just very different in different ways. But anyway, so next week I'm going to go down the line all the way to where I'm at now and what I know now. And I just think by me doing this, seeing where I live, the climate I live, like maybe some of you lived in the same kind of climate, maybe not in California, I don't know, but you let me know what you think, and I'm going to go ahead and keep going down the line of the years of my life, that things that happened that could have changed it, just trying to get maybe some answers or some help of some things. So anyway, I hope this wasn't too much for all of you, and I love you all, and please like and subscribe. Have a great week. And don't forget to push that button, like,